PKN episode 400. Our baby podcast is longer running than most real podcasts.
Hell yeah.
Oh yeah. We're going to have a Gretzky-like record on podcasting by the time we're done. Woody will be 74. I'll be 56. Kyle
Taylor
will be 61.
has shown some commitment to the game. I can't believe he did bloodletting and sacrifice just for episode 400. But
yeah. I wanted it to be good. And so the guy's like, "Oh, hey, I was just going to drop it off here, but if you want, I can. We can push it up into your garage." And I was like, "Sure, this will be a lot easier." And I already noticed that he was struggling because he had put the prongs of the pallet jack incorrectly. They were under the braces. And so as you know, with the pallet jack, you're meant to stick it between the braces. So when you lower it, the pallet jack hits the ground and you slide it out seamlessly and then can stick it back in. Well, he did it wrong. And so it's all kind of hanging off, and I'm pushing this thing as hard as I can, like a football linebacker sled. And we get it up into my garage, no problem. And I'm like, "Oh, that's awesome." And he's like, "Thanks a lot, man." I'm like, "No problem. I appreciate it." And he's like, he lowers his pallet jack and the whole thing goes, and I hear the grinding of the pallet jack under, like on my concrete. And he's like, "Fuck, it's not coming off the pallet jack." And I want to be like, "Yeah, you didn't do it right. Like there's only one way to fucking do this." And it goes between the slats.
Do you see the pallet jack spaces? Put it there.
Yeah, put it in fucking spaces, dude. And so he lowers it, and there's just the grinding of the pallet jack. And instead of maneuvering, he's just yanking on it, which is kind of pulling him closer to the driveway and the down area. And so I pull on the left side, and I grab it, and I heave it. I pull it as hard as I can, and it somewhat comes off on the left side of the pallet jack. It's the heaviest. Heavy. It's the heaviest box on earth. this container. And he's still standing up, pulling on this thing. And I wrap my arm around to where my arm is here's the corner of the box. And I pull as hard as I can. The thing clunks off onto the ground. And he's like, "Oh, thank you." And I feel like what I think is like a bee sting level of pain on my arm. And I do kind of a half-ass glance down, expecting a scratch. And there is a hole in my arm, very deep. Yeah, there's my arm. And I immediately go, I've never
Those St. Louis hospitals do it differently than we do here.
Yeah. That was the job me and the UPS man did. And so basically I immediately go, my instinct, because I can see the entire, all the skin is perforated, the meat, I can see the fat and the muscle tissue. I can see all the fucking meat, and the darkest red blood starts pouring down my arm. It's soaked in 2 seconds. And my instinct was to try and grab it and pinch it closed. And I was like, I need to go to the hospital. And the guy was like, "Well, I can't take you to the hospital." I'm like, "No, I don't want you to take me to the hospital. Just hold on. Don't leave yet." And so I'm pinching my arm closed, walking back into my kitchen through my garage. Blood is everywhere. And I'm walking through my kitchen on the hardwood down towards my hallway because I wanted to get a towel from my hallway closet. But then I'm like, fuck, I'm going to ruin my carpet if I walk onto this. And so I find a clean dish towel, and I'm looking for tape. And I hear the USPS guy in the garage. He goes, "I got tape. I found it. I found tape." And I'm like, "Thanks." And so I am still futilely trying to pinch this wound closed. There's so much blood, I can't get a purchase on it. And there's no way to close it. It's so gross. I go out there and I slap the towel on, and I'm like, "Thank you so much for not leaving right away. Tape me up. I don't want to bleed all over my car on the way to the urgent care or the hospital." And he tapes me up good. He's like, "Ooh, wait, hold on. Don't leave yet. Let me get another good round on there. My wife's a nurse." And I was like, "I appreciate it, man." And so my arm is duct taped with a dish towel on it.
Hold on, let me fly this. My dad's a pilot.
Yeah, exactly. And as he's getting back into his car to try and continue his day of deliveries, I'm peeling out "Thanks," and it's just driving to the urgent care initially. And then I called my dad on the way there, and because he's not a doctor, but he's adjacent and works very closely with a lot of doctors, familiar with that industry and everything. And I was like, "Hey, don't freak out, but I just stabbed myself so bad, like worse than it's the worst injury I've ever seen in person is the way I put it to him. I've never I've never in my life seen a cut more intense than this in person. And he was like, okay, so it's through the skin. And I'm like, oh, it blew so far past the skin. Like it was like the width of it, it's at about 10% of the total, like kind of width of a X-Acto knife.
Okay.
And make it much longer than the exposed point of an X-Acto. I'm trying to figure it out. It's a long.
You could put a crayon in it.
You could have stuck multiple crayons in it.
How many?
Okay.
You probably could have, at the time of it opening, you probably could have got 5, 6 crayons in.
I'd have gotten 7. I guarantee.
I bet you could have, but I was.
You know what? I'm patting myself on the back for my crayon unit.
I've played this game before. Not cut.
I called my dad and I was like, hey, I told him all that. And I'm like, should I just go to urgent care or what? And he's like, do not go to urgent care. It sounds like you got like real deal damage in your arm. Can you grip everything? Can you feel everything? And I'm like, yeah, I have full grip. Thankfully, my forearms are so jacked that there was a layer of muscle and fat under it. A smaller man would have died in the garage.
The arm would have fallen off.
The arm would have fallen off.
You know what?
I'm so powerful.
I might have hunted down a tampon for the ride to the hospital.
This guy taped it up so well that it didn't leak the whole way there. Now, when they eventually took it off, the entire towel was soaked with blood, like wet. But I listened to my dad. I go to the hospital, and it is, you know how triages work in hospitals. Like everyone who's older than you who shows up goes before you. It's not a line. It doesn't matter when you get there. And so like I'm just watching myself sink further back in line as the day goes on, which fucking blows. Because it's like, oh, you have a forearm laceration? It's like, yeah, but like you can't tell with the duct tape. It's legit. It's a legit one. Like I'm not overdoing it. Yeah.
Next time something like that happens, it sounds like you went to a big ass hospital, right?
Yeah. I just went to the closest. Actually, that wasn't even because that's what I was told to go there. That's
what makes sense, and I bet it was the best care you could have probably gotten. But if you'd driven like 2 hours into the country and went to some little podunk hospital, it would have been crickets when you went inside.
2 hours into the country,
yeah. He waited longer.
I waited longer than that just to get in, and like when I did go back and get in, go ahead.
While we're doing suggestions, the hospital you went to. I'm sorry, carry on with your story.
I've heard that too, and I really wanted to. It's a forearm thing, so I just wanted it done quickly. Like just get it done. If it scars a bit, really not a big deal. Right. So at long last, I get brought in the back, and they start to take scissors to remove. They do the thing like, are you gonna want to keep the towel? I'm like, is there another doctor here?
That is grandmama's towel.
My gift to you.
You can have that.
We can consider it payment for the stitches if you want. I'm a barber.
Like, just cut it off. So they get those big jaws of life scissors and they go through the 15 layers of duct tape and the towel. And I don't know what it's gonna look like under the wound, because like last time I saw it, it was over an inch deep, like just a hole with an enormous amount of blood pouring out. And what happens apparently is like your arm repressurizes and like starts to push like the meat almost like to the surface and almost out. Have you ever seen like a twice baked potato
or a woman with an outie vagina?
Yes. Yeah. Even better. So they remove it. And like, I'm grossed out by it, so I don't want to look, but I have to know what it looks like. And it's like the meat of my arm is like cresting above the surface of the skin.
Souffle.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
And it was a resident doctor. So like, I guess like the level below the real doctor who started, numbing me and stitching me up. And she looks at this and I don't know anything about stitches. I've never had stitches, but she looks at the wound, and the only bone I've broken is my nose a couple times.
Kyle, have you never had stitches too?
I've had so many stitches.
Oh yeah, I'm in the hundreds. I'm sorry.
Okay. You've had so many stitches. I've had 20 stitches.
Okay.
Yeah. And so I was like, I'm curious, is this going to hurt? Is it going to be like totally numb? Well, it turns out they numb the shit out of you. They could like chop your arm off and you wouldn't feel it. But she looks at the amount of damage in my arm and is like, okay, not too bad. I think this is going to be about 3 stitches. And in my mind, I was like, I don't know, but those must be beefy stitches or something. Like, I don't. And she sewed me up. And again, I don't know about stitches, but have you seen zombie movies where like the wound is open for all intents and purposes and it's pinched together kind of in 3 areas across?
Yes.
That is what my arm fucking looked like. And she starts wrapping it up with the gauze and everything. And I don't really know the difference. I'm like, well, that's horrifying. Like, it's still oozing out. There's still like blood and viscera and stuff coming out of my arm when they push on it. And she was like, all right. She wrapped it up. And then the real doctor came in and was like, let's take a look.
Right? That's the name of it.
Yeah. The attending physician, he came in and was like, all right, so I see that Susie Q got you stitched up. Let me take a look. And he unwraps it and he goes, oh, oh, okay. Well, we're going to add some more stitches here. And he was like, do you want me to renumb the area? Like, do you feel this? And like, I had to make a decision. I didn't know. I was like, I kind of feel you poking, but not like really. And he's like, well, do you want me to, we can renumb it, but that'll take, I'm like, just go very quickly. Like, it's like told him to go fast. And so then he starts sewing and he adds 4 more stitches in between all the gaps. Meanwhile, I'm seeing the beginning of like a terrible scar because of how badly this is going, has been put together on my arm. And even with the 7 stitches, there was still a triangle of red slice.
An 8 would have hit the spot.
No, I showed it to someone who is in the medical field. I showed them the wound a few days like after the fact, so it's already started fusing back together. And they were like, "Oh my god, that you needed 10 stitches. Like for sure 10 stitches here. This is terrible. Like they did a terrible job of this." And I was like, it seemed like it, but yeah, I can't.
I'm not.
It happened last Thursday. I think I've got 10 days. All right, I can take off the sutures between 1 and 2 weeks, and they said to take like 10 days off of lifting, but I'm going to play it by ear. Great. They sent me home with a suture removal kit.
Yeah.
This has to be like, they don't always do that. And they didn't used to do that. I think like some of my stitches were in the days when like mom stayed overnight after delivery and like there were professionals there to like care for the baby and stuff. Now, 45 minutes after that baby pops out, they send your bitch ass home and tell you to start momming. You just limp around breastfeeding or something. That's current medical care. So the remove your own stitches thing is just par for the course. Okay.
So that's why I missed the show. Everyone is listening. I stabbed myself with a piece of metal.
Well,
badly.
Right after the next day, something equally bad befell me. Obviously, when I dropped the blade to my food processor onto my foot there.
Dude, that happened as I was sending pictures of having stabbed myself.
Were like the pictures crossed in midair.
How did you drop the food processor on the bottom of your foot? Like that is confusing.
So you know how like when you step, your foot is moving forward and toes are pointed up. When you swing your foot forward,
okay, sure.
Yeah, that's when it hit my foot. I was mid gait or mid step or whatever, and it was falling, and it the toe was pointed straight up. And if this is like the tip of my toe, it goes from like almost the nail all the way across the tip and the bottom of it. And I immediately like dropped the pan I had in my hand and like wrapped it up. And I was like, we're not going to the emergency room. I refuse to go to the emergency room. And I like undid it, and there was a pool of blood like as big as like a dinner plate. And I was like, I refuse to go.
Stuck with it.
I feel serenity now.
I literally got on the couch and like elevated it and like kept it squeezed really tight. And eventually it stopped enough that I could get some super glue in there. Pinched that.
I was wondering what you went with.
Yeah, I alcohol swabs and like got it clean enough, and then a fat thing of super glue, and I wore latex gloves and I just held it shut for a while with the fan blowing on it, and pretty much good as new.
How's walking on it now?
Sore.
So you're tender with it,
yeah. But I take those Epsom salt baths though, and I don't know if there's any actual like flesh exposed. I made like a cake of super glue over the wound, so hopefully that works. It works itself out.
Yeah, super glue, quite the lifesaver.
Yeah, I know it was invented for that purpose. Everyone throws that out there when they hear the words. Did you know? Yeah, we all know by now. Everyone knows super glue is made to hold skin together.
Someone's listening right now. I didn't know.
It's nothing but panhandling.
Killer panhandling.
Good morning.
And I enjoy it a lot.